Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to a fantastic session, really featuring our trailblazers at Univar. It does cover off on B2B commerce. It talks about the agility that B2B commerce, Roku and MuleSoft has provided for our friends at Univar. My name's Eric Murata. And the next slide really kind of speaks to who I am and that I'm part of the product marketing team here at B2B Commerce. With me is Chief Information Security Officer, Director of IT Strategy and Architecture, Mr. Kevin Campbell. He's going to share with you the tremendous story and for Univar. Yes, we always like to talk about this slide, and this is really just a punchline. This is talking about reality today and how you can achieve the level of agility utilizing Salesforce as Univar. I want to again thank Kevin for this and thank all of you for coming and joining us today. What it is that we're talking about, what it is that B2B commerce is helping solve and resolve is that basically a combination of the buyer expectations, right? All of us from a consumer experience are on our mobile phones, making purchases, taking notes, researching new projects, researching new trails that you need to attend and sessions you need to attend. But often in B2B commerce, the transaction kind of ends with that information. So you have to pick up the phone, flip it to your head, and dial out to place an order. At the same time, the business and those product teams, the sales organizations, etc., are also pushing the IT organization to transform, not just by driving an e-commerce experience and creating a portal, but also transforming the whole level of how you go to market, the products you sell, how you bundle them together, how you maybe transform and start selling your products as a service. So all these disruptive business models are always at the top of the business users' minds, and that's what they're driving towards. And this is also driving acceleration of digitization, right? New technologies drive new demands and new responses from a technology perspective. Kevin, I'd like to bring you to stage. Univar, as you can see, really maximizes the customer success platform. And Kevin's going to share you an amazing journey and story about how they do that. Kevin?
Thanks, Eric. Good morning, all. So first, just a little bit of information about who we are. You won't have heard of us, hopefully, because we're in the business of distributing wholesale industrial chemicals, ingredients, and services. But we enable the companies you have heard of. The people who make your soft drinks, the people who make your water safe to drink, the people who help release bagels from a cooking mold. Those are the people that we enable. We're a global company with our largest commercial footprint in the United States, and we've been around for about 94 years. We're not a technology company. In the years that I've been with Univar, IT spend has never reached 2% of revenue. So we're fundamentally a distribution business. We have a lot of facilities where we warehouse materials in order to keep them close to our customers. When you start looking at B2B commerce for somebody like us, the first realization is that your B2B commerce system is not the system of record for almost anything. Omni-channel commerce means that your customer is going to do business with you over whatever channels are convenient for them and over all of the channels that are convenient for them. So this means we've got to be able to bring together information from a variety of places. So commerce might be a platform of interaction with your customer. It might be where they research products or place orders, but the actual ERP behind the scenes is what's going to allocate inventory, build loads, dispatch trucks, create accounts receivable, collect payment. That's where the transactions are going to occur. But the business and the customer expect it all to look seamlessly. So in that world for us, where we have a 30-year-old mainframe ERP that is our system of record, our transaction system, the information that we have there isn't suitable for consumption by a customer. It was never intended to be. We don't have the business case for a full product information management system. We're not a catalog company. If you go to our e-commerce site, we basically have 4 product images because one drum looks like every other drum, one tote looks like every other tote, one bag looks like every other bag. But there are all of these characteristics and attributes that differentiate them And the source of that data is the ERP, because that data governs who's allowed to buy what. So part of our challenge is that we have to be able to transform and enrich this data as we bring it through to the customer. And we also have to be able to mash it up and link it up with the documents and the other media that they're expecting to see. So part of the challenge we have now comes when we look at the non-functional requirements, which is how much delay are we willing to accept? What is our timeliness requirement for data? If I'm making a decision about a credit limit, I need to know what the customer's available credit limit is right now as I'm placing the order, not when we did a batch ETL last night. So there's a different solution required there from customer names and addresses. Customer names and addresses, we need customers to be able to select the ship to which their order is going, like that, with minimal delay, and that data is relatively slowly changing. And then we have our hotspot, which is inventory availability, order status. I want to be able to see the status of an order online that maybe I just placed by phone. So this really is a tough spot to solve, because I can't rely on a periodic feed of data. I've got to be able to look at it in a more real-time perspective. But my online orders are a relatively small percentage of all the orders I'm doing through omnichannel. So you've got to figure out how to adopt different approaches to solve for different problems, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. So we started by introducing MuleSoft and building out our Anypoint platform. And where we started with this was by building stored procedures that encapsulated complex data-driven logic very close to the data. We built Postgres databases in Heroku. We populated it with data from multiple back-end systems and from the data that our business was providing us to manually enrich things like product descriptions, descriptions for packaging codes. So we bring that data together in Postgres in Heroku. We create stored procedures on top of that that allow us to leverage the power of a relational database and do things that, frankly, SOQL cannot do. We can leverage full text indexes, we can have complex joins, and more importantly, as I'll talk about in a minute, we get to leverage the skill set we already have. We have 18 years of people who know how to embed business logic in SQL stored procedures, but they know nothing about Apex. They know nothing about Mule, but they don't need to. So part of what we're doing is we're building out a database platform as a buffer between our cloud services and our ERP. What we then did was we said, okay, as we start to build this out to handle stored procedures, to do more complex searches with Mule providing an API, so my Apex developer just calls an API endpoint, Mule then calls the stored procedure which does the logic. We've got all this data in Postgres. How else can we use it to help solve some of our other problems? Well, one of our problems is that our mainframe ERP was never designed for internet scale. If you're in the mainframe world, you pay per MIP. You pay essentially for CPU capacity. I can't make a business case to increase the size of my mainframe just to satisfy queries coming in from the internet. I need something that's internet scalable to stand as a buffer between the outside world and my mainframe ERP. As we migrate to SAP, one of my considerations there is how will SAP licensing look at how I use this data? And other ERP vendors are trying to find out how to put their hand in your pocket too, to say, well, you're building out all of this digital channel. I want a piece of that because you're doing work through a digital channel that otherwise a licensed user had to do sitting at a screen. So for us, this provides a buffer, and we use two key platform technologies. With Sync, what Sync is doing is a bidirectional replication for objects that exist in Salesforce. It creates a database table in Postgres for you, and it's responsible for keeping the two up to date. So we use that for standard objects in Salesforce and for objects that come as part of a managed package like B2B commerce. This is how we did away with batch ETL. So we no longer have batch ETL. Instead, what happens is we dump data into Postgres. Currently, we're doing it hourly for most of our data, but it's real time for some things. When you create an order, we replicate that out in real time using messaging, and we update the order table in my ERP staging area. Triggers fire off that then populate my conformed e-commerce data. bringing in the MDM data that enriches my product information, does whatever else I need to. A trigger there then fires off, which updates my replicated, my synchronized table that represents a B2B commerce object or a Salesforce account object. So we no longer have scheduled processes. Instead, data arrives and it ripples out through the infrastructure. That's how we're using sync. Similarly, when somebody makes a change to an account object or a user object or something else in Salesforce, that's pushed down into Heroku Postgres for us and becomes available for us to join as part of the complex business logic. So we have availability to the data that's in Salesforce and the data from our ERP, so we can bring it together to know how to populate a B2B commerce price list, how to deal with product entitlement, those kind of things. The third pattern that we've got here are Salesforce external data objects. And Heroku Postgres makes this simplicity. You go into the Heroku console, you pick a table or a view, because it will work with database views as well as tables. You pick an object in your Heroku instance and say, I want that to be an external object. In your Salesforce instance, that now looks like any other object. Behind the scenes, OData, when you do things to it in Salesforce, it's creating an OData query that goes out to the table in Heroku. Why is this useful? When we're doing things, if you look at the demo that we have, when our customer logs in on their homepage, we show them their 9 most recent orders, including the ones that they placed by email or by phone on our homepage. If it was me, I wouldn't have chosen to put that on our homepage. We also show them the documents associated with their 9 most recent orders on their homepage. Why is this particularly challenging? Some of our customers order once a quarter. Their 9 most recent orders might take me 2 years worth of history to find. That's precisely the kind of data query that you really don't want on your homepage, but when the business decides that's what you want, how do you take out as many layers as possible? You have to have as little code as possible between showing the result on the homepage and actually serving it up. This is where an external object comes into its own. So within that conformed data layer, we have tables that are indexed specifically to solve that problem. So my Apex developer writes a SOQL query against what to them looks like any other Salesforce object, but it's actually a table in Postgres, in Heroku, that's been indexed specifically to answer that question. And it's kept up to date by the hourly feeds or the real-time feeds of data coming in. So I don't have to have 2 years and millions of records of data being pushed into Salesforce. It gives me agility because my Apex developers can change their minds on the fly about what they want their criteria to be. I don't have to anticipate what they want back in their result set. They get to do what they like. We just have to populate the data and make sure that it works for them. So what does this give us? This allows us to have Salesforce to be our customer interaction platform. This is where we leverage our agility, our time to value, click not code. This is where we build out solutions for the customer. This is already where we're managing our customer account hierarchies. B2B commerce is a perfect fit because if you have a B2B environment, you almost always have complex account hierarchies. I'm a national buyer who buys on behalf of 500 different ship-tos. Those are things that account hierarchies in Salesforce understand. B2B commerce understands that. That's where we do product and price presentation, and we also do quote management. We currently have a custom-built application we're migrating to CPQ. This is already where we're doing a lot of customer-related activities which generate data that we want to incorporate in B2B commerce. We already built out a customer self-service portal so that whether they're transacting with us or not, they can get access to their invoices, their safety data sheets, none of which live in Salesforce. They all live where they already lived. We've just put integration layers in front of them. So what this has done is it allows us to use our interaction platform to get a complete transparent view of what's going on in our business, even though the systems that generate the data aren't in Salesforce and the data isn't in Salesforce. And part of the message here is it also allowed us to leverage skills we already had. If you're a Java developer, Mule is really, really easy and obvious. If you're a database developer, we have stored procedures that I originally wrote on Oracle in 2000. We migrated them to DB2 in 2005. We migrated them to SQL Server in 2015. We migrated them to Postgres in 2017 because SQL is one of the most transferable skills I've ever had, and it's allowed us to leverage the database developers who understand the business rules and the logic, which unfortunately is documented only in their own code somewhere. They can be productive without ever understanding what Apex or Mule are. And of course we have the Lightning platform, which is how we bring all of these pieces together and deliver them quickly to our customer. So the punchline, and we get all the value out of it that we can, is that our business actually came to us and said, we think we should stop delivering features so fast and focus on adoption. And they said that 6 months after we went live with B2B commerce. That's not what somebody says to you if you spent 6 months up all night putting out fires. So the truth is we've removed technology as the hurdle, and instead it's all about what's the business idea that's going to generate value, which they can then get adoption on. But we're not the long pole in the tent. So it's a very, very quick session. We have 4 minutes for questions. Thank you for attending. I'll take whatever questions you might have that you can fit into 4 minutes.
And it may be easier for you to come up.
How did you decide that Heroku was the platform to use?
So how did we decide that Heroku was a platform to use? Because if you look at the value of sync and connect, Heroku is how you get it. So Heroku gives you Postgres that you don't have to manage. They back it up, they patch it, you can change the scale. There are other relational database as a service platforms you can go for, but they don't have sync. And if you want to eliminate batch ETL, sync is a really great way of doing it, and Heroku Postgres is the only way to get that today.
Other questions?
We recently did POC for Heroku Connect and ran into issue where formula fields doesn't sync. Cross-object formula fields, are you aware?
So,
Formula fields? Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that, which means it's probably something that if it is an issue, so cross-object formula fields, that hasn't come up, so either it's not an issue for us or it's not an issue. Sorry, don't have an answer.
Other questions?
Yes, sir.
Should have stayed down.
Did you look at other options beyond MuleSoft when you were making the decision?
We did, yes. So in fact, over coffee this morning, my buddy Skip asked me the same question. And because there is one and only one aspect of my life in which I'm quite detailed, I take really good notes every time I speak to a Gartner analyst. So December of 2014, only because I looked it up this morning to remind myself, I spoke to a Gartner analyst to ask them for their perspective on different cloud-to-ground or cloud-to-cloud ESB platforms. Delboomi was the other one that we looked at in the most detail. We've adopted over the last 4 years a philosophy of profoundly adequate decision-making. It used to be that you would go into analysis paralysis, you'd try and boil the ocean and think of things every which way. We gave that up because we weren't right more often, we just took longer. So in this case, it looked like either one could probably do it. The SI we were working with said, we just finished a project with Mule that went really well. Do you want to meet them for breakfast at Dreamforce? And we did, and it's like, they can do what we need to do, let's give it a try. So honestly, it sounds facetious, but we value velocity. We don't know what we don't know. How do we find out? Well, let's pick something and get on with it. It turns out, we're lucky more than we're good, probably. 1 minute left. Okay. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.